This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts. Well, hello everyone. It is Massive Late Fee back here with Everybody Lies, our house review show. Today, we are going through episode 3 entitled Gout? I don't remember what it's called.
Oh, what's this one called? Occam's Razor.
That's right, Occam's Razor, which... for those of you who are fans of Latin will know Occam's Razor is the simplest solution is always correct, well, as Foreman points out at some point in this episode.
And I bet if you started a razor company and called it Occam's, people would be dumb enough to just buy it based on the name. Because like, oh, I've heard of that.
Right? Do you think that that's true? I would say for sure.
Yes.
I would say the simplest solution is usually correct. But is it always correct? I don't know.
I wouldn't say always, but it is like 99% of the time, and that's really a good slogan for the show itself. Because often, like, even though he suspects all these like crazy like diseases, it's like, oh no, I'm sorry, you had a fever.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, you're paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of your life.
Sorry, and then it's just house shrugging. Oh, man. Thanks for letting me experiment on you. Tuskegee all the way.
Right.
But anyway, so this opens up with a woman trying to fuck her fiance to death. He's called into work.
Yeah, at first, though, we just think it's his girlfriend, so,
yeah.
It's not as romantic.
Right, exactly. But he calls into work because he's got a cough, and basically he's just playing hooky. And, she's in bed with him. And they do, the typical PG TV thing where she doesn't have to take off her underpants and doesn't take her shirt off so that her breasts aren't exposed while they're having sex. Because that's right. How we all do it, right? Women keep their shirts on, and all we do is unzip our pants.
Right. Sometimes, if you're in a hurry, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. If you want to, rush out to a movie or something. But anyway, so they start having sex, and then he kind of he collapses, and we get the.
I feel that everybody collapses, and that's the only time people take them seriously in this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Like so far, every episode, it's like, oh, he's fine. Oh shit, he collapsed.
Wait, he fell down?
Right.
We got to take him to the hospital now.
Oh, he was saying bees were eating his eyes and that the flood was coming. Oh shit, he fell down.
Get me house.
He was hemorrhaging out of his eyeballs, and then he fell down. They were like, don't be a pussy, walk it off.
Right.
Then he collapsed.
Oh, wait, he fell. But anyway, so they, House is talking to Wilson, who is recommending the case to him. And basically, he says, this is a little thing, but this comes up, this little dance between Wilson and House. And, he's like, well, why do you want me to take this case? And, he's like, oh, there's a bunch of sick people in the world and everything. But it is a case that people aren't, figuring out, or they can't figure out. So House decides to take the case. Basically... And we get a little more of it. Like I said in the first couple episodes, Cuddy wants him to work in the clinic because she wants him to deal with people, because she thinks him dealing with people will make him a better person. And Wilson is doing the same thing with having him treat patients.
But my question is, does that make him a worse doctor if he's with people?
And it might make him a worse doctor. But that's
because he's very analytical. He never sees the patients to begin with. I mean, honestly, you could say that if he's the only one who could diagnose these super rare, hard to figure out cases, then I mean, why would you waste his time with shit that an intern could do?
Exactly. Although it is funny because he has his team perform all the tests because he doesn't trust nurses or aides or anything like that. And it's like a bunch of stuff that, like drawing blood and shit like that
yeah.
That like nurses and stuff would typically do. And, the real reason is because we need more scenes with the team, and that's why
Yeah.
that's why he does it. But that's his. He doesn't trust them. He only trusts his team. That's the justification for it.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, I don't even. Hugh Laurie might as well just be like a Charlie's Angel disembodied voice.
Exactly.
He's never there.
It's funny.
That'd be funny.
He does do that at some point in the episode. He does do that. There's an episode where he calls on the phone and he's like, "Hello, angels," or something like that.
Nice.
But so initially he's got a cough, he has a rash, and his blood pressure is high and not or low. Was it high or low? I can't remember.
It was very low.
Yeah, and it's not responding to IV fluids, which makes sense because if you bulk up the volume of the blood, then blood pressure typically goes up. So yeah, it's not responding to fluids, and that's weird. So he goes through and he writes all these symptoms that the kids got on the board, and he's like, well, what explains these symptoms? And Foreman starts like shooting down everyone's ideas, and he's like, well, it can't be this and it can't be that. And House takes a book down and puts it in front of him. He's like, if you're going to name all the things that it isn't, go alphabetically. So he wants to find one disease that,
Explains all the symptoms.
Exactly. And there isn't one. They can't find one. So I'm trying to remember what they do first. He has them, I know he has them try to treat the blood pressure. I think they give him antibiotics first.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so then they start running cultures and everything after they give him antibiotics. And Chase, he kind of talks to the guy and his girlfriend and everything, and then he's leaving, and the girlfriend says, hey, we were having sex when this happened. And he's like, oh, you can't catch it. We ran STD panels, and it's probably not sexually transmitted. And she's like, no, do you think I could have done this to him? I was being pretty rough. And so then we cut to him telling the other two about it, and Cameron says, what'd you tell her? Or what did you say? And he said, 22-year-old guys don't die of sex. And she said, well, what did you ask? And she's like, if she thinks, it could kill somebody, you should have asked more questions, basically. And
got those digits.
Yeah, exactly. And so now suddenly he's interested in Cameron. And there might have been a little bit of a crush before, I guess. It's never explicitly stated, but it's made clearer in this episode. Foreman was like very recently hired when the first episode came out, and those two have been here longer. Chase has actually been there the longest, and so we
get to see some more about their personalities and like how they, their relationship with each other in House in this episode.
Yeah, and they've worked together longer than those two, and there was never anything before. So I really think that this sort of sparked something, I guess. And
yeah, and I'm going to go on record here. I think I may have mentioned this before, but I don't understand what anyone sees in Cameron. I mean, I'm not trying to be a dick or anything. Mm-hmm. I just don't get it. Like, House talks about how beautiful she is. Chase and Foreman are like, openly like discussing how fond they are. I don't get it. I'm not a fan.
She's not my type.
Yeah, she really narrates her life with cartoons.
Exactly. She doesn't have a cartoon version of her standing on her shoulder. So, and she can drive, but no, she's real skinny, and she's not like very curvy or anything. She's just not really what I'm into. So I've never really found her attractive either. But
yeah, I don't get it.
To each their own, I guess.
I feel that sometimes in like a TV show, if they like have a role that says like, attractive doctor, whoever they end up hiring for it, they're like, well, the role says attractive doctor. We still have to treat her this way. So people are like, well, I guess if they're saying she's attractive on the show, I mean, I guess she's okay.
Right, exactly.
Like the whole Jennifer Aniston thing, I don't think I've ever heard a straight guy say that he thought Jennifer Aniston was hot.
Yeah, there wasn't anyone really hot on that show, Friends.
No, there really wasn't.
But anyway, so she, she says that, and then all of a sudden, like, he's all a Twitter with, with love for her. And Foreman points out, he breaks the little tete-a-tete there and says that they better stop the antibiotics because they're killing him. It's his kidneys are failing, and he thinks it's a result of the antibiotics. So
I think Foreman definitely, he already was because I had seen, shows before, but if I was just watching it from the beginning, this would definitely be the episode he became my favorite character. I just love how, like, he's, like, always Bucky up against House. He's always questioning him while the other two are like, well, House said.
yeah, exactly. And that comes out in this episode, too, because he, so he goes in, he says to House, hey, his kidneys are failing. It's got to be these antibiotics, and then he goes through and he gives something that he thinks it could be causing it, and House says, "You read the book," and he kind of smiles. So, like that book that he threw at him, he said, go through it alphabetically. He read the entire book. That's how much he wanted to solve this case, prove House wrong, be the one to get to the answer.
And they say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And then House, he has a theory that it's two different diseases now. It's like a sinus infection and something else. I don't remember what the other thing was.
Hypothyroidism?
Yeah, which I guess that's kind of weird if the two together would cause that. So they start to treat him for this, because, like, it's... Sometimes I feel that they're just way too reckless.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They immediately, like, subject them to, like, the most intense tests, and, like, they're just pouring blood out of their veins at a certain point.
And that's the thing too. Is it's like a lot of times it's not even tests. It's just like there's no time for tests. Treat it.
Yeah, like the Robin Tooney one. They just paralyzed her. I think it was just like a worm in her leg.
Yep.
They paralyzed her, like, well, you're going to die in 3 days. And then really, at the end of that episode, like, when she's shocked at, like, how she just eats pills, she's like, you mean you could just give me pills? You need to paralyze me for the rest of my life?
Oh, my God. But, yeah, so they start treating for this thing, and
they cut to Cuddy just, like, counting, like, hundreds out on her desk as they do this.
Yeah, exactly. But so he says, it's these two diseases we're going to treat for it. Basically, Foreman doesn't agree, and he starts running gels for different infections that it could be, basically. And, he says to the other two, he's like, hey, you guys think House is right that, he did his job, all this stuff, then go ahead, go home. I'm going to, run gels. And so they reluctantly go with him. Like you said, they're kind of followers, for sure. And so he starts running gels for the different things that it could be. And I'm trying to think what's going on with House. Oh, House is in the clinic. That's what it is. So while this is happening, House, has been ordered to do stuff in the clinic and to treat these patients in the clinic.
Oh yeah. Now I remember.
And so the first, like, he goes up and he's basically like, hey, I have board certification in nephrology and infectious disease. I'm the only doctor who's here against his will. I take these drugs all the time. And, maybe, I think that I need him, but maybe I'm just stoned. Who wants me? And, of course, no one raises their hands.
Again, he's just openly, like, using, Oxycontin or whatever it is he's taking.
Vicodin, yeah.
There you go, Vicodin. And no one even says anything. So this is clearly opioid crisis.
Oh, for sure. So he, Cuddy tells, one of them to go in with him. And he quickly realizes that she's getting fired because she's got new glasses. She's just gotten some dental work done. And she's at the doctor now when she's not sick now, but she was a week ago. And she says,
Right.
I just don't like people telling me what to do. And you can kind of see the admiration that House has for that attitude. So he's
Yeah, and
like,
you can tell he likes screwing over the insurance company too. You could tell it would be something he'd enjoy.
oh, yeah. So he's like, well, I'll get you in for a full body scan.
Right.
But yeah, so he sees some patients there. And there's not a ton that goes on in the clinic in this episode. Mostly it's him messing with Cuddy, paging her for consults on stuff that's easy. Basically showing that this is really beneath me. The guy says his throat hurts. He's got a sore throat. He can just take a cough drop. Why do I have to waste my time in this bullshit, basically? And
Right.
he's trying to make her life miserable because she's making him miserable. And that's basically what happens in the clinic this week.
Yeah, that's like a separate show, really, at this point.
But so,
I think I'd watch a show if it was just the clinic. What do you think?
yeah, I think that would be fun, actually.
If it was just like a straight up comedy,
Yeah.
like they completely change the tone of the character, I don't care. That would be fun.
But so House shows up, and he says, so during this time too, Foreman points out to Cameron that she's gotten under Chase's skin, and he's like, now he can't help but think about sex when he's looking at you, and she kind of. She's like, well, that's not fair, because why? Just because, like I say, I like sex. If you guys said you like sex, that wouldn't mean anything. And House points out that, that's how guys are. And she's like, they should just grow up. And he's like, yeah, that'll happen soon. And he says to him, hey, it's probably negative, right? You should spin, his urine and come back to me when you did. And so they do. And he says, hey, his count's low. How did you know? And he said, well, you should have checked in on him while you guys were doing all that stuff, because I checked in on him and he's doing a lot better. And so Foreman says, he says to Foreman, that means I was right and you were wrong. I win, you lose, basically. And he walks away. Wilson's in the room with him. And after he walks away, Wilson says, well, why do you do that? And he goes, he says, you make him feel like crap. And he said, like, well, what would happen if I said, hey, nice try, but you didn't get it this time? He'd go home feeling satisfied and everything. And Wilson said, so it's better for him to, or you want him to go home feeling like crap? And House says, I don't want him to go home. And he doesn't. He goes back into the lab to try to prove him wrong. And it makes sense because House is smart enough to realize Foreman's like, very extreme type A personality like he is.
He's very driven.
Yeah, and that's how he's going to respond and become the best doctor he can. That's the tactic that he needs to take with him. Because he doesn't take that tactic with all of them. Just Foreman, really.
It out. What they should do is reboot House with Foreman as House.
Okay.
Foreman, MD.
Okay.
Because Foreman would just be like the same surly old asshole that House is. Mm-hmm. So that'd be fun.
They should do that. I'd watch that.
And then Cuddy's in the show, and she's still like letting her like tits fall out. And she's probably like what, 60 now?
She does dress very provocatively in this show.
I don't understand it at all. It's distracting. Whose decision was this? I wonder.
She, they mention it, in certain episodes how she dresses, but yeah, she's the dean of medicine of the entire hospital.
Right. When they're making the announcement, and the new dean of medicine is Dr. Cleavage.
Yeah, exactly. But
She probably has her lab coat like cut out so you can see the cleavage.
But so, the guy's parents come. I think his name's Brandon.
Gordon.
Yeah, it's Gordon. That's right. That's a nice callback to. Let's see, which one comes out first? Yeah, the other one comes out first. Yeah, it's a nice callback to dumpster diving. But yeah,
it is Brandon. Yeah.
So Brandon's parents get there, and he tells them, "Hey, I'm engaged to this girl," and the mom looks very shocked. So, I mean, that's going to happen, I guess, when a kid goes away to college.
Yeah, for his first semester.
Yeah, gets engaged to a girl she's never met, and that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand the whole getting like married like in your early 20s.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see in some situations like my wife was married before, but she had been with him, for like a long time.
Long time,
But
yeah.
but going to like like, oh, I just met you at college. I mean, they didn't meet on the very first day.
Right.
That's so at the maximum 3 months. I mean, that you've known this person for.
Yeah, I was 20, I think I was 24 or 25, 25, I think, when I got married
Yeah,
the first
same.
time, and that was too young, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, it was you had a child and all that stuff,
Yeah.
which and you assume, I obviously you would assume that you're just gonna be with that person.
Yeah, I thought so. I was just an idiot. But anyway, but yeah, like 19, 20, 21. That's really young to get married, people.
Yes.
So, so this kid starts getting worse again. Somehow he's picked up an infection, they think, so he needs to go to a clean room, because, if he doesn't, he's going to die, basically. So they take him
Right.
to this clean, sterile room, and House and Wilson are talking, and he walks up. He's talking about Cuddy and how he doesn't want to kiss her ass and all this stuff. And he goes 36 Vicodin, and which is a weird number for prescription, by the way, because it's not
Yes.
it's not a month's supply. It's 36. So what is that like? A week's supply, maybe, or something for him?
I mean, are they? How often are they supposed to be? Every 6 hours or something like that?
I think it's like every 6 hours or something like that. Yeah.
So that'd be like 9 days worth. That's again a weird number. I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, so he's like 36 Vicodin, and the guy goes, "Who's the patient?" And he says, "Me." And instead of being like, "What are you, insane?" or something, all he says is, "Oh, I can't do that." And he goes, "Wilson's the prescribing doctor." And Wilson just looks at him and goes, "Yeah." And he just fills the prescription.
Yeah,
Like-
nothing weird about that.
Like you said, it's way before the opioid crisis.
I wonder how long that. So I always feel that these episodes have a really weird timeline. Like, I imagine some of them are actually happening concurrently, because like it's a lot of shit going on. And it's only like supposed to cover like a few years, I think.
Yeah.
Like, isn't it a show that's not like it's not every year in the show is a year, or am I mistaken? Like, Breaking Bad is a very specific time frame. It's like 3 years or something.
No, I think you're right about that. I think this show is supposed to take place over the course of, it's like 9 or 10 seasons, and I think it's supposed to be about 3 or 4 years, something like that.
Okay.
It's definitely not.
Yeah.
Each season's definitely not a year.
Yeah.
But so yeah, he and the timeline on this show always gets kind of messed up a little bit, because a lot of the time courses for these diseases are just, you couldn't compress them into like an hour of TV realistically, because they're like, time courses for diseases are so different. Like, a lot of them are way longer than they would be. So yeah, time's just weird in the show.
Yeah, it's something.
But anyway, so he picks up the wrong pills, and Wilson says, "Hey, wrong prescription." Also, by the way, there's just a bottle of pills sitting on the counter there. I don't know who those are for, but Wilson gives him the right one, and all of a sudden, House gets his eureka moment where he says,
which is go ahead. I'm
"No,
sorry.
good." Which is
Odd, because every single diagnosis relies on him having a eureka moment, which he's had in every episode so far.
yeah, it's weird. It's one of those things that I think they try to pull from
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes, yeah, because Sherlock Holmes always has that dramatic, like, aha, this kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess if they made it seem more like he was like had something like on the tip of his tongue he couldn't quite figure out, that'd be one thing. But in House, he literally is like, "Oh yeah, medicine can be mixed up."
Yeah, exactly.
Golly gee, I got it all figured out.
It does make it feel more like luck than anything else.
Right.
Which is weird, because he is as a character, he is a brilliant analytical thinker, and when you do stuff like that, it does make it seem a little luckier. Like, what if he hadn't gotten Vicodin with Wilson? That kid would have just died.
See, really, if you could reframe the entire show and thinking of him as just a very lucky doctor, and then all his diagnostic ability seems like shit because he's always getting the wrong diagnosis right away.
Yeah, exactly. Until
And then
that
just
lucky thing happens.
by some act of God, he figures it out by like sheer coincidence. He's like, "Oh yeah, rheumatic fever. Try that."
He's Inspector Gadget. That's what he is.
He kind of is, yes. And Foreman is Penny running around.
Exactly. Saying what an idiot he is.
Yes.
Oh my god.
He doesn't have a computer book, but he should. Hey, do you think if House was having a conversation, they just suddenly paused and looked at Chase and said, "Go make me a sandwich"? Do you think Chase would run off?
Oh, absolutely. Chase would absolutely go make him a sandwich.
Either that or he'd be like same kind as last time.
Yeah, Chase kisses his ass for sure.
Fucking as guardians.
But anyway, so he says, what was the first symptom? It was a cough. And so he goes and he's looking at all the symptoms. Then you see him and Foreman are sort of working, you know, they're both working around the clock. Foreman's trying to disprove, and House is trying to prove his new theory. And he's ostensibly, it seems like he's looking up drugs and side effects of, you know, certain drugs if you don't have the disease that they're supposed to treat. And, you know, he figures it out. It's colchicine, a gout medication. I think colchicine can also be used to treat Behçet's disease.
Of course.
But anyway, so yeah, colchicine is, as they explained in the show, it stops mitosis. And it's got a lot of different, you know, side effects. And you know, a lot of these side effects are ones that he's experiencing. So he says, you know, he figures out that he's been taking colchicine instead of what he's supposed to be taking for his cough. He said he went to a doctor for this cough, and the doctor prescribed him medication to justify, you know, the bill that he charges him, and you know, the pharmacy screwed it up. So he goes and talks to the parents and the girlfriend or the fiance, and says, you know, because it's funny, like it's like the family read the script because they gave him the perfect opening for exactly what he wanted to say. The dad stands up and he's like, "Oh, you're the doctor we haven't met. You're the doctor that he hasn't met. How can you treat somebody when you're not even looking at him?" It's like, I always think it's stupid when people are asking these questions. He has 3 other highly qualified doctors treating him around the clock. Who is complaining about this?
Right, you only have 3 of the top medical students in their country in here.
Right.
And they're already full doctors. They've got their degrees. They're just like doing a fellowship or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I think later they kind of drop this, like, "Oh, you're not even here" thing, and I'm pretty glad because it gets very tired very quickly.
Mm-hmm. And yeah,
we get it. He's not there.
And that's the thing. Like, go to any hospital and see if you've got 4 highly trained doctors working at it. Like, no one's complaining about this. But anyway,
right? And some busty hospital administrator who constantly barges in and gives you a good look.
Exactly. She's a whore.
That's a callback too.
But anyway, so House takes the opportunity to basically say, "Hey, you know, your job's to hold his hand, and my job is to prescribe the medicine. So, you know, if I was gonna tuck him in at night, that would be stepping on your guys' shoes. Who stepped on my shoes? Who gave him his cold medicine?" And it turns out it was the mom gave him the cold medicine. They go to the
right?
Yeah, exactly. They go to the pharmacy, and you know, the mom again is incorrect, as we will later find out. But she's like, "No, those were the pills that he took. They were little, round, and yellow, like Nuprin, I guess."
Like the Weasel Face debut album.
Exactly, little, round, green.
There's Little Green Different.
Oh yeah, Little Green. Yeah, that's right. Little Green Different. That's right. I owned that CD.
Yeah, I think I did too. If Matt Segan's listening to this in our previous episodes, this is really paying off for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Go check out Weaselface and Matt Segan. Find him. Find him. But anyway, so like she says, that's the medication that he was taking. And so, House says, okay, I guess I was wrong, basically. Or he's bullied into saying that he was wrong. And they start treating him for, something else. And then he says, the Brandon's complains about his fingers tingling and everything. And House hears that, and he comes up there, barges into the clean room with no protection on, and basically says, look, I don't know how you got it in your system, but colchicine does its shit in a very specific pattern, and all of it, you've got all of it. Your hair's falling out too. He goes, it's definitely colchicine. I don't know. He's like, you take any drugs? Ecstasy? And the girlfriend's like, no. And he's like, oh, one time with my friend. She looks shocked. And
Right.
And he's like, you know what they cut that stuff with? Apparently colchicine, because it had to get into your system somehow. So,
Why is it that people always say drugs are cut with like these ultra rare substances?
right, exactly.
Like if they were trying to save money, like oh shit, I'll just go acquire some colchicine.
Yeah.
Where the fuck do you get that?
Yeah, who's cutting their drugs with a gout medication?
Right.
I mean, baby powder or something like that. Okay, I get that, but yeah, not these ultra rare things.
Right.
It's like,
oh shit, this is cut with diamond chips.
yeah, exactly. It's like when people are like, "Oh my god, my marijuana was must have been spiked with PCP." Yeah, because that's what people do is they just give away free PCP in their marijuana.
Right. Oh man, I got this PCP. I'll just sprinkle a little bit in there, because it'd be much harder to make the marijuana more potent.
But anyway, so they start treating him for the colchicine stuff, and he gets better. Except for the cough, because that's the only thing that it wouldn't treat, and that was, he just had a cough, and then all the other symptoms were from the colchicine poisoning. But House can't let it go. He needs to know what it was. And, that's another thing that kind of shows us his personality. So he goes to the pharmacy and
again, we'll just point out that he's just left there to root through the drugs and just open any bottle he wants and just whatever the fuck he wants at a pharmacy.
Exactly. But he does end up finding it. He finds the colchicine it looks exactly like this medication. And, like you see him, he looks like he just got high because he puts his head back and breathes a sigh of relief. As Wilson pointed, he's like, aren't you curious, Wilson, about this? Wilson says, no, because I'm well adjusted.
Right.
Which is basically, exactly what it is. House has nothing in his life other than solving these puzzles.
Pretty much.
But that was the episode of House. I liked this one a lot too. Another enjoyable
Yeah, I thought it was
episode.
good. I think they're getting better. Like they're kind of figuring out the formula a little more.
Yep.
Because I don't think there were any the weird CGI shots in this one. No, actually, I think there were.
There was one, yeah.
Yeah,
When
but
he
it wasn't
explains.
like, oh, look, I hear this with my ear, and here's my ear canal. That's the anvil.
Right. I will say there are, I think, probably three episodes of this show over the entire course of the show's run that I would put up with the best single episodes of almost any show. Like even Breaking Bad, The Wire, if you not overall, the House is not as good overall as those shows are, but single episodes, there are 3 in House. And we're gonna get to one towards the end of this first season that I'm excited for you to watch.
Which one is it?
It's 3 Stories is what it's called. I think it's the second to last episode of this season.
Sure.
But yeah, there are three episodes that I can think of that I would put amongst the best. The rest of them, are varying degrees of. Most of this first season is pretty solid, I think, and this episode is no exception. And then there are some that are not great episodes, and there are some that are super ridiculous. But
I've seen some of those.
But yeah, so that is our episode. Yeah.
Oh, I'll say real quick, though it might not be real quick. Say you had to rank the best single episode of any TV show, assuming that the watcher knows they're completely up to date. You can't just pull something out of context and be like, "Oh, look, here's an episode of Cheers where if you knew this and this, it would it's the best episode ever."
So,
What would you say that would be?
So-
say assuming the person is a fan of the show to begin with. So
Okay.
You can't just pull an episode like there's a lot of standalone like X-Files episodes. You could say, oh, you don't have to know anything except they're FBI agents and look, they're catching a monster.
so
I mean,
so
yeah, so you
I don't need to worry about context.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Like for example, I watched the last episode of Seinfeld before watching any other episodes of Seinfeld. That's why I don't like Seinfeld that much.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Oh my gosh. So that is really tough. Honestly, I really like, and I'm pretty sure it's this one. I like both these episodes, but I'm pretty sure it's the first one. It's called Half Measures. It's
Oh yeah, that's a good episode.
from season 3 of towards the end. I think it's the second to last episode of season 3 of Breaking Bad. It might be one of my favorite episodes of that show.
Yeah, I think that's when the show like really took off, like the third season. That's with Gus Fring. That's my favorite villain of all time. I'm almost positive.
And I can't think of his real name, but Mike, the the enforcer.
Jonathan Banks.
Yeah, Jonathan Banks, that's right. His acting when he's telling the story about where he says, I chose a half measure when I should have gone all the way. The way this shot is framed, the cinematography of the shot and his acting in the shot, because that's what carries a lot of the. There's not a lot going on visually. They've done what they can to make it exciting visually, but a lot of it is just his acting, and it's outstanding. Like he giving this monologue.
Yeah, it's a great episode for sure.
And that's one of my favorites from that show. I don't know. What about you?
Okay, I think my wife is going to instantly know which episode I'm talking about. It's an episode of The Shield.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a season. They have like a guest star for a whole season a lot of times in The Shield, and this one Anthony Anderson was a guest star.
Okay.
And he plays like a drug kingpin who's like I think he was recently released from prison. And he's kind of like taking back his old territory. And so this one episode, like they take him into custody and they they cuff him. But then the cop is he's like kind of like he's part of a corrupt unit. Shane Vanderell's his name. He's trying to encourage him to like try and attack him so he could justifiably shoot him because the guy what's his name? Anthony Anderson's character is I don't remember right now, which is a shame. But he
Gordon.
He kind of no, it's Gordon. But he notices that he doesn't put his gun up. Like you don't often see police with like firearms in an interrogation room. Mm-hmm. And then the way he cuffs him is he kind of cuffs one hand to like the bar instead of like cuffing his hands together, which they normally do as well. Mm. And then so he just unloads on him like in the most like hateful like vitriol, like it's the most racist thing you've ever heard. It's homophobic. It's any kind of thing that will cancel you in this day and age.
Right.
It's said in this. And then he just kind of like you could tell Anthony Anderson's acting in this episode is perfect. Like he just you could see his character. You could see the light go on in his eyes when he realizes what's happening, and you could see the rage just like roaring through him. Like this is a guy who's like used to getting his own way. And Anton maybe is his name, but he's like a god amongst men. He's a modern day king, and he just pushes that all back down. He just like politely sits down and like cuffs himself the right way. And wow, it is the most intense scene you'll ever see, especially if you're caught up on it.
I gotta watch this show. I'm telling you.
It's a very good show.
Yeah.
Like the first episode from the get-go, it's a good show.
Yeah, I'm definitely. Okay, so I might try to. I don't know how many episodes it is, but maybe I'll try to I'll take a month or a couple months and try to catch up on it, and we can do a special on it or something.
We should get my wife on for that one. She's like a mega fan.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. Oh well, that is our episode of House and Shield Talk.
Real quick, the meaning of life.
But we will see you next week. As always, tell friends about us, and if you're a big fan of House, I don't know, shout us out on social media. Are there any things you want us to talk about? Any segments you want? Clinic person of the week or something?
If you're a House fan, tweet symptoms to us, and we'll try and guess the disease.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good idea. All right, we will see you next week. Bye.
See you later.